Hello my friends, welcome to another episode of Game Testing Unlimited. My name is Wilfred. So some of you have requested if I could do a second video on Diablo 4 first impression or review after the second weekend. I'm happy to do so for you guys, and suffice to say my second weekend for open beta was a lot more pleasant than the first one. I did not have the connectivity issue I had during the first weekend, and also I got to take my time and enjoy the character through a story. So yeah, the experience has been positive. Now overall, if you do compare the Diablo 3 open beta 11 years ago to the Diablo 4, I think suffice to say, whether you really like Diablo 3 and sort of like, there are things that you don't like about Diablo 4, the truth is that there's a huge improvement in terms of the scope-wise. There's a lot more in depth to it. And now, if you take a look at Diablo 4, max level is 100, and they let you play until 25. And if you look at the Diablo 3 equivalent, you're talking about level 18 in Diablo 3. Now, level 18, you wouldn't even talk about build at that level. You wouldn't talk about the optimizing certain build, like what builds are better than others. You wouldn't talk about what gear to use at that level. Now, granted, during the open beta weekend, the drop rate has been increased quite a fair bit. But still, that there are items that you could craft into it, and the fact that back then in Diablo 3 and even now, play until kind of Act 1 kind of story, you wouldn't even go to that extent, shows that the Diablo 4 has more depth to it. It is more difficult, slower pace for you to stop and think, and overall I think it's a good kind of like direction that is heading towards, coming from someone who loved Diablo 3. The world of course larger, with the story that is more less linear, is bigger, and with the side quests that go along with it as well. So I kind of like what I'm seeing. So overall, to me, it is still a recommendation, no doubt about it. And of course there are concerns I'll address a little bit more in this video. And I think Diablo 4 will be a fun game at launch, especially if you love Diablo 3. Because I still think that Diablo 4 is a refinement of Diablo 3. It doesn't deviate too much from the Diablo 3 kind of concept. It's not like an innovation or quantum leap from that Diablo 3 kind of concept. I think a lot of ideas, if you play the classes like Necromancer, a lot of skills are still very much like you can recognize it back in the D3 days. But is it an improvement? Yes, indeed, it is a huge improvement. I think it'll be a good game at launch, and it will take Blizzard probably a couple of years, 5 years or so, to perfect the game. Just like Diablo 3, just like Diablo 2, their track record is to come out with the game, you will love it, and they improve upon it. So I still have faith that they will be able to do a good job in it. And but I mean, look, I still think that it is a very, very expensive game. I mean, even a base game for that kind of money, without the fancy battle pass, season pass, and extra cosmetic, early access, what have you, I think it's still a very, very expensive game. You're paying for the franchise, so that would be my only kind of like, if you are someone who may not find this game to be valued at that kind of like price, although it could be a fun game, and you want to have a wait and see kind of strategy, then I fully agree and can relate to as well. It's just that I personally like Diablo franchise a lot, and from what I've read, from what I've seen the YouTube videos so far, from my own personal experience so far, I think it's going to be a good experience. Now, let's talk about the what I meant by the refinement of Diablo 3. So just take Necromancer as an example. I always felt that Necromancer is very restrictive in terms of having to look for corpse in order to do certain damage. Now, of course, there are ways to get around it and devour and what have you, but I always find it, it's very limited to what I can do based on the amount of corpse I have around me. And if you look at Diablo 4, clearly they are getting around the whole corpse kind of like situation with ability like decompose, skills like decompose that enable you to generate corpse as you deal channel damage, for example, is a good example there. And there are like mechanism whereby you can get lucky and the cost may drop as well, and also a thing that help you to deal with this kind of like a corpse shortage issue, especially when you're faced with the Guardian in Diablo 3. You kind of know what I mean. If you can't pop the Land of Dead for some build and just down the boss in one shot, then you will be in difficulties in moving forward. So yeah, I mean that is one example of how they take Diablo 3, probably can't change how Diablo 3 work, too much work. So they have Diablo 4 that improve upon it. Skeleton Mage is another example. I think back then when the Necromancer DLC came out, a lot of people commented that the mage are just too expensive to summon and they despawn as well, and they got upset with that. And guess what? Now their Book of the Dead in Diablo 4, whereby the skeleton and the warrior and the mage can be summoned through one single skill. And that is like, okay, so you have an army there, you do have mage, you do have a skeleton, do what you want with it. So I thought some of this, really kind of like an improvement over the Diablo 3 kind of franchise. And the other thing is like some of this passive skill, like Bone Prison is a passive skill in Diablo 3, and now they make it inactive. It interact with the whole vulnerability kind of mechanism, and it become a conscious decision when you click that kind of bone kind of prison and make it kind of fun with it. And you could even bone prison yourself if you want to fence off the mobs from coming towards you. I can't try that, but I mean, all in all, what I'm trying to say is that there are quite a lot of like improvement towards the Diablo 3. Not a quantum leap. I do see some new ability from the Diablo 4 Necromancer, but like vast majority I can relate back to how Diablo 3 was designed. And also what I like about the Diablo 4 is that the ability, like many modern ARPGs, have a tagging to it. So you can see that Decompose is darkness, and there are some other tag to it. Some of them is summoning, like the skeleton, and some of them could be like a corpse. Some of them could be, and that is very great, really great, right? Because it lends the whole clarity on what gear can buff certain, or what passive notes can buff certain skills and ability, just like many modern ARPG. And it makes the life of a theory crafting a lot more fun as well, because you kind of know that what kind of passive will benefit what skill. That synergy can be built. And also because of the skill point that you can put in, you could kind of like pick notes here and there, just one point here and there, or you can go deep a little bit on that, and that forces the whole decision over the real trade-off. Now, no doubt, eventually people will find a way to kind of like optimize the whole thing and everybody will follow, but it doesn't stop anyone from experimenting, all this skill tree allocation, all this gear kind of synergy. The only kind of like criticism I have around this whole kind of nice thing is that respect now, if you want to change your specialization, change your skill set, you have to pay gold for it. I do not know what the cost is like in the end game, because I don't know whether in the end game I have a lot of gold as well. But back in Diablo 3, I could change my build quite easily. If I want to do speed farming, I use a speed farming build. If I want to push for Greater Rift, I use a very strong build to push, but not necessarily the fastest. But when I play the Diablo 4, changing specialization is not as simple of a click of a button like the armory in Diablo 3 or the talent in World of Warcraft. You have to pay gold for it. And from my short experience playing the world event like the world boss, my summon will just get destroyed within one single strike by the boss. I would want to go in with a totally different build. But a summoner build is fun and is effective during questing. So what should you do? What should you be doing? Would you like to do a bit of summoner, doing some kind of questing, effective, or would you like to focus on one single boss with no ads? And that decision is different. The whole strategy is different. So that is probably one of the my concern over how one could vary their build into a certain content, because I don't think that one build will be able to be sufficient to play all the content. But let's continue the whole refinement of D3, Diablo 3. Is that Diablo 4? From what I see, the early kind of crafting is kind of fun. Is more in depth than the crafting in Diablo 3, and also I feel that gold is a constraint. A lot of people are lamenting on the fact that there's not enough gold, but I not necessarily see that as a bad thing, because gold is always a constraint. Any game that you play, even Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor that I play, when it comes to heavy crafting, it's getting really expensive. I'm always short in gold, so you have to make a decision of what you want to have, versus you can't have everything. You have to make a decision. What priorities are you going to set? Are you going to upgrade some gear to a higher item level, or use the money to socket something and do a nice dam on it, or extract the power into aspect and apply it to a gear? So you've got to make all these decisions, all because not enough gold, right? But the problem is that because the gold get in the way of respecting and being able to experiment the build, so people are not that happy in open beta. I got it, but I think look, it's only first 25 level. Who knows? Maybe gold will get a little bit easier as you go higher level. Now the next topic I'd like to go into is really about the graphics and the user interface. So now those things are different, but they are kind of related. Graphically speaking, Diablo 4 is amazing. The detail on the character, even after you customize your character, and the lighting, and the gear, how shiny it is, the detail of the world environments, the snow that come by, or the blood puddle that fall. Everything is so pretty. I mean, it's really look at nice, real enjoyable to play in the world of Diablo 4. The something I don't really like is the user interface. I think the user interface is really it can do a little bit more on that. Sometimes, like some of the tags of the items can be a little bit long. You have to scroll up and down. Some of the defaults, like I want to look at my stats, but instead they tell me all my crafting material. A lot of big wording here and there. I don't know whether it's because of console or what, but I think the UI is kind of messy, I would say. Not the best kind of UI that I would kind of expect from Blizzard. Maybe they're constrained by the fact that they have to make console work as well. The whole emo has a wheel to it. Some people don't like it. I'm alright with it. Playing with mouse and keyboard is okay. It's very much a Diablo 3. A lot of keyboard binding options. The combat wise is very smooth. Because combat can make or break up a game. Although I don't really feel the physics of walking. I don't know how to explain this, but some game that you play, as you walk, you feel like the character is walking. There's some weight to it, not floating in the air, some sound to it, or some kind of like an animation that you feel you're walking. Diablo 4 is a little bit of floating in some sense. It's hard to describe, but it's not a showstopper for me. Definitely it's not optimized. It depends on server kind of like performance as well, but even during the second weekend, when my latency was pretty good, hovering around 100 ms, because I'm from Singapore, I can't expect it to be like a single digit or 2-digit kind of latency. There's a bit of like lagging, a little bit of rubber banding as well. which is something I don't see often in Diablo 3, I must say, because in Diablo 3 I get to connect to the Australia server. However, it's not really because of that, because even when I connect to the Australia gateway or server, I'm experiencing 100 ms, so you know, Diablo 4 is not much difference. I think it's to do with optimization, because when I lower the texture as well as shadow, as I read in the forum, it does decrease amount of lagging and rubber banding, so it doesn't look as pretty, I must confess, but at least the gameplay is smoother. I'm playing with my laptop, a gaming laptop 3070, with you know, pretty decent AMD kind of processor. It's a decent gaming laptop, so I've never had any problem with the modern games with this setup. But when it comes to Diablo 4, I think there must be some optimization. Maybe just NVIDIA. I heard that even 3080 is not handling well with the Diablo 4. So I'm hoping, finger crossed, that they could do something with the performance of the game. The next topic I'd like to cover is the story. And when it comes to action role-playing game, I would not take it for granted that it will come with a good story. I've played many ARPG whereby the story is just really meh. Like, you know, I don't even get the story. You know, some really good game like Last Epoch, I kind of like the whole game, but the story I just don't get where is it going. Wilson is another good example whereby I don't connect the whole story at all. The you know, the better ones would be games like perhaps Warhammer 40,000 Inquisitor, because they come from the Warhammer 40,000 kind of lore and background, and I kind of like drawn to the story a little bit better. There are some that I'm just in between, although the game is really good, like Chronicon. I don't really get the story per se. It's a good story, but it's not a memorable story like I'm a hero or what have you. So that is yet another example that I don't necessarily get it. Grim Dawn, there's a nice kind of role-playing game around it, but again, I don't really see the whole big picture of the story. But when it comes to Diablo, I think the story is really one of the best out there, and Diablo 4 continue with that tradition. It continues to draw me in. The conflict between you know, Lilith coming into the sanctuary, which she created together with Inaris, and Inaris coming into the sanctuary as well, and with Rathma, the firstborn of the necromancer, being part of the whole picture, and then the Nephilim, or you know, the beings within the sanctuary being like, you know, part of this whole plot, that even after Act 1, you know, I was like my last video, I was so touched by the whole kind of sacrifice and, you know, and a story about mother and daughter, kind of like relationship, about the whole kind of like arrogance of Inarius, the hatred of Lilith, and the sacrifice of Rathma. I mean, all these are really, really touching the very core of me, and I really feel for the story, I must say. Now, some people may not like how the story of Diablo 4 is being kind of linked up, but that is a topic I'll cover in just a bit. But I must say that from what I've seen so far, although I'm still trying to figure out who I am, I think it's really good. The other good thing about this Diablo 4, although some people comment about some of the conversation cannot be skipped and so on, but those are small things really, is that you could follow the main story and get where is it coming from. But if you invest your time in exploring other side conversation, like those topics that they will cover, but you can skip it, you don't have to watch it. And if you invest time in just listening to those conversations, it kind of adds to the whole story, like, oh, why are we doing this? How come I end up here? How come this set of people end up there? What is town doing over there? And that, I think, is really amazing. Another thing is that there are side missions as well. And Diablo 3 had side mission, but it never reached out to the entire main story. And in my opinion, the side mission, which I participate in it, I feel that I can understand the towns and different towns better. I can understand the situation, the plight of people on the ground, like, you know, what suffering they have. I think I'm more drawn to that part of the storytelling. Now, is it mandatory to do all these things? Probably not. You can push yourself through all the main quest and get to the end of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. After all, a lot of people skip the story. But you know, when it comes to Diablo franchise, it's always good to experience the story at least once. And from what I've seen in the open beta, I am moved. I'm moved, and I like what I'm seeing. So I will. I mean, I'm looking forward to see what the rest of the story will be, and that is my thought on the story. Character customization, let's talk about that. Diablo 3 didn't have that. You pick a class and you pick a gender, and that is a look that is given to you, like it or not. And you know, anyway, the character is so small that you can't really see the face. That's one. And even so, you have different kind of gear. So what a lot of classes have the mechanic that's mandatory, like bone armor for necromancer, that with that then your whole armor looks all the same for bones, and every character looks the same. So kind of barbarian has one, almost almost all the characters have that kind of like a ultimate look that look everywhere the same. But so far from what I'm seeing in Diablo 4, I'm hoping that I don't see the same kind of bone armor in Diablo 3. I'll be very heartbroken if we do. But that kind of enable us to really appreciate the character that we create and really relate to the character that we create. Like, you know, what kind of facial expression you like the character has, what kind of marking and what kind of jewelry. I mean, all these things are really nice. And also Diablo 4, like Diablo 3, does not have a gender lock. Now you must say, well, that's no big deal. It's a big deal for me, because when I play some even modern day ARPG, a lot of them are being locked to a certain gender. Now of course that costs a lot lesser to produce the game, but it just kills the whole immersion. At least for me, like, you know, I can't relate that there's only either I play a female or play a male for a particular class. I mean, why is it that way? So I'm happy that Diablo 4 doesn't have a gender lock. And also the when it comes to the body type, let's talk about that, because I think we didn't have that topic cover during the first weekend when we had sorcerer, barbarian, rogue, as well as one other, I forgot the one other class that's out there. But when it comes to the second weekend, when we have druid and necromancer, everybody is jumping on the body type. All right, so now how should I talk about this? Necromancer body type is towards the bony, thin type, really thin. So even a female character, like I was just showing it to my friend who was kind of like, you know, looking at what I was doing, and she was like, that is not a female, that is a male, right? I said, no, that's a female, trust me, it's a female necromancer, it's not a male one. But that's the thing, that's the point. You know, that the body type is being fixed there, and people are not happy about the fact that you cannot choose the body type that you want for the class. Kind of argue with that. And when it comes to druid, I think that is the most hilarious kind of discussion going on, that people think that druid are obese. And I don't disagree. It looks like the Pandarian in World of Warcraft. I mean, my first impression when I look at the male and female druid is like, these are Pandarian, right? These are panda in World of Warcraft, because they are kind of like, you know, a bit plump, a bit cute. Do I hate it? Not necessarily. I mean, you know, if all druid are a little bit of that size because they need to shape shift into a bear or a werewolf, I don't know, so be it. If a necromancer is very bony and skinny because all they play with is skeleton and all, death, meaning that there's not much life in them, I think I'm okay with it. So yeah, I mean, overall, the whole body type discussion to me is rather hilarious. I can see both sides of the argument. You know, we should be empowered to pick the body type that we want to play a certain class, I would say. but I'm okay. I'm not that like, you know, disappointed and say, oh, there's a showstopper on that. But I do find the whole discussion pretty amazing. You know, it's kind of more or less an amusement to me. And I think we do need more hairstyle. I would say it's just not quite enough. And the fact that there's no barber shop in Diablo 4, although you can go to wardrobe, change your makeup, change your marking on your body, but you can't change anything else. Like, you know, in World of Warcraft, you can change a lot of things. So I actually hope that there will be more hairstyle, a little bit more kind of flexibility in how we change our look, including the hairstyle or facial hair. I think that will be good. Otherwise, I mean, look, guys, when you create your first character in Diablo 4, create a character in Diablo 4, please make sure you pick the one that you like. That would be my advice to you. Okay, yet another very hotly debated topic, the MMO aspect of Diablo 4. Okay, so this is the tough one. So if you are a purist and you play Diablo the franchise and that solely, it may feel strange that the whole Diablo 4 become the MMO ARPG. I play World of Warcraft, so to me I'm okay with it. It's natural. In fact, I play Marvel Heroes back in the days when Gazillion was around and there was kind of superhero, all the Marvels, kind of like superheroes and different classes and design and so on. The MMO concept works, you know, really. I mean, there'll be town and city whereby you can see many other people together. You head for a story, you can see other players trying to complete the objective together. There are content that exclusive to MMO aspect to it. So I get it, you know, MMO for ARPG may not necessarily be bad. It could be quite a fast pace, not like World of Warcraft. I personally think that World of Warcraft is a lot more slower compared to ARPG when it comes to the MMO aspect. But I'm okay with the MMO aspect of the Diablo 4. I personally think that what you see today is not even a fraction of what the potential would be by having Diablo 4 as an MMO. I think this is a foundation. The foundation of a Diablo franchise whereby you could group up with other people for certain events and to do certain things together, arrive at a certain timing. So Diablo, I don't know about 2, but Diablo 3 is very much like a solo game mostly. You could play with a friend, but there's no event to drive you to lock in certain time or date. There's no such thing like the Diablo, like World of Warcraft, whereby there's weekly quests or monthly quests that you would be grouping to accomplish that, right? Like World of Warcraft, their weekly quests, they have the events, they have the trading post this day, which is a monthly event. I'm waiting for that April to come and look for my next cosmetic reward. But there aren't anything like that for Diablo 3. So Diablo 4 offer the MMO aspect of it. Some hate it, understood. You know, if you like the solo kind of thing, then it's like, why do I have other Nephilim running around? But I genuinely think that it is a good foundation. Now, when it comes to MMO, of course, it comes with the lag and all the unpleasantry with dealing with people online. It's just something that I hope Blizzard will be able to iron out the all these things. Are there any concern for me? I think I do. The fact that there are world bosses that are much stronger than any story bosses I've seen, even at that same difficulty level. I don't know whether difficulty level apply to world bosses or not. The fact that they are so much bigger than a normal boss in Diablo 4, where do they come from? I mean, if I read the lore of Diablo, where do the world boss come from that is so strong that you take multiple Nephilim to try to down it? I don't know. I just cannot reconcile. I don't want it to turn into another Diablo game whereby just like a monster hunter kind of thing. It's just like, you know, there's a monster there, just down it. Forget about what lore it is. How is it related to Diablo or Lilith or whatever? Just doesn't matter. Just down it. and to fight the demon, right? So I don't know. I just don't quite kind of get it. But I hope they'll have a better explanation. Where do the world bosses come from? Why are we doing that? I think the why is very important. Now we haven't really talked about PvP. I haven't really done much PvP as well. I'm not a big fan of PvP. But I was just thinking in my wildest imagination, it could well be a Rhyme versus Rhyme kind of game, because if you look at how Act 1 developed, they are worshipper of Lilith, they are worshipper of Inarius, and there are people who has the independent mind that is neither aligned to the angel nor the demon. So why can't that form like a Rhyme? Like, if I'm aligned to Lilith, be it a Lilith Rhyme, that I'm going to take down other armies of the Inarius. If you are Nephilim and you're aligned to Inarius, I disagree with you, then too bad, we fight. So I think rather than PvP, I think the Rhyme versus Rhyme concept would be way more fun, but I highly doubt that it will be the case anyway. And that brought me to my last point before closing, is the lore, because and I think I'm not the only one who observed this, many people do that too, is that if you look at Diablo 2 and 3, I think there's a connection there. But when it comes to Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, where is the connection? Black Soul Stone, where is it? Is it still important? The Tyrael, where is it right now? Will he appear somehow? Who am I? What am I doing in the whole timeline? Where are we on the timeline of Diablo 3 into Diablo 4? Is it before or after? I have no idea. I mean, I genuinely confused of the whole timeline and the lore of the Diablo 4. And I'm hoping that Diablo 4 Act 2 and onwards will try to explain the reason why we are into this world drawn together. What is the future for that Lilith is seeking? How does it relate to all the work that we have done in Diablo 3? How does it relate to Tyrael coming down from the heaven to be among one of us? And so on. How does it going to gel together? I do not know. I'm really looking forward to it. It will be a massive disappointment if at the end of the Diablo 4 story there's no connection. It's very much like the Mass Effect, right? If you guys watch play the Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, the whole story is beautiful. It connects really well. And then comes Mass Effect Andromeda. That's where does that come from? I don't get a connection to Mass Effect 3 at all, because Commander Shepard is dead, I suppose. So I'm hoping that Diablo 4 is not like the Mass Effect that expansion after the Mass Effect 3 that doesn't make sense. So let's keep our fingers crossed. So in closing, like I said, I'm still very much recommending the game to those who love ARPG as well as Diablo 3. I pre-purchased the game because two things. One is I read online, because after Diablo 3 I'm very conscious, right? Because Diablo 3 is not exactly like what Diablo 2 the promises were. So I was a little bit more conscious over the Diablo 4, but I've been reading a lot of good articles as well as YouTube videos, gameplay and so on. But mainly for me, the reason why I pre-purchase is not afraid of losing out. No, it's not like that. It's because I play World of Warcraft as well as Diablo 3, so it does come with a very nice cosmetic item for Diablo 3. I still play it. The Inarius ring and the pet are very, very nice. World of Warcraft, the mount was really good. So I was thinking, okay, the game is very expensive, right? I think $70, and the amount in World of Warcraft could easily cost maybe $20-25. A wing, like if you buy those like expansion, wing, and in Diablo 3 could easily $10 plus the pet maybe $15. So to me, I rationalize it that way. So okay, it makes sense for the pre-purchase. And besides, I really want to play Diablo 4. So really, the rest of it are bonus. I'm trying to cycle myself about price because it's a very expensive game, but I can deal with that because of all these other items. After the open beta weekend, I'm even considering upgrading my my addition to allow me to have an early access and the battle pass, because I'm just curious about what the battle pass would be, rather than having a bad foot at the start of the season. Not quite sure. I'm pretty sure you can buy the battle pass yourself when the time comes, when you see the reward is meaningful. But I think I enjoy the game a lot. I really don't mind going in for early access, and also some of these cosmetic items that I could earn. That is for Diablo 4, right? The mounts as well as the wing emote. So yeah, I'm seriously considering, because from what I've seen in the open beta, I had a lot of fun. So, but anyway, this video turned out to be a lot longer than I intended. I hope it's okay. And as always, I'm keen to hear from you, your comment as well. We do not have to agree, and in fact, I always value kind of constructive debate or feedback that we have, and I always like to hear from all kind of perspective. Like I said, I am, if you follow me on my channel for a long time, you know that I'm a straight talker. I don't hold back on how I think about certain games. This video is not sponsored. I had to pay really high price for Diablo 4, so I just honestly say what I genuinely feel. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you around. All right, bye.